Are you building a home or dealing with a general contractor on some sort of project? One thing I see in our industry all the time is a lot of general contractors will say that they're the best at what they do, that they don't cut corners, and that they're the guy, that they're the premium guy that never cuts corners. I just had a guy last week that, had called me. He was actually a land developer in the process of building a house, and had called us to get a price on a system. Now, as I started in with the things that we think need to be done correctly to make sure that system is sized correctly and installed correctly with some of the questions, we immediately found out that we weren't a fit, that he was looking for the cheapest bid option, cheapest and quickest bid, and he wasn't necessarily looking to do things right. In fact, he pointed that out himself. He said that, he wanted to go up in size on the heating and air system. And when I mentioned all the reasons why things needed to be done correctly if he wanted to use us, he actually said to me,
"I'm not sure we're a fit here. You sound like the kind of guy that's going to
hold me up."
And I guess I was. I was going to hold him up with making sure things are done properly. The downside of all this is who ends up paying for this attitude? Who ends up paying for this guy to not be held up? And he's just going to go with some cheap guy that's doing it on the side and is not going to do everything properly. It's the homeowner that ends up buying that home in the end. And that's part of the reason we see all these issues with folks. I hear homeowners say all the time, well, it was like that when I bought the house, that I've had all these issues right from the get-go. And part of that, whether it's due to the system be underperforming, issues with the system on a standpoint of repairs, or one or two rooms that are not heating and cooling properly. Maybe you have one room in the house that doesn't get warm enough in the winter. A lot of times it goes back to the general contractor, and it's not even necessarily the heating and air pro's fault in all cases, unless they're just the type of heating and air pro that's just, they're going to make what they can, and they're willing to cut corners just to get that quick buck when dealing with those general contractors. So in my opinion, across the board, I have noticed that this is a trend with almost all general contractors. Now, I can't say this goes for all of them, not 100%, but it's a lot of them. And in fact, I remember dealing with one just a couple weeks ago. My wife and I were actually looking at their homes. They were building a home. I was talking to the salesperson from the company that builds the houses, and I was just asking her a few questions about, do they install a nice heating and air system? Is it going to be zoned if it's multiple levels in the house? Things like that. And I quickly realized that they were going with the cheapest thing they could, the cheapest option. In fact, I even asked, can you, I understand you want to do probably the ductwork and things like that. Do you want to rough that in? But can I have my guys come in at least after that and install the heating and air equipment to make sure if I'm buying this brand new house that I also have a nice efficient heating and air system that's going to work properly as well? And of course, the answer ended up being no. After a few back and forth. And they said it was because of liability or whatever reason, but it really boils down to money most likely. We see these contractors, they cut corners, they don't do proper heat load calculations, they don't care if the ductwork is sized properly. All they care about is getting that cheap equipment installed and it passing inspection so that way they can get the house sold.
Hey fellas, look what I found in my pocket, look!
I would even go so far to say that most, and I say most, not all, but most systems installed even today, with all the tests that they make us run now, with all the blower door tests and all the duct blast tests and all the things that new construction guys have to do, that we're still seeing most systems have ductwork that is undersized. And that's why you get houses that are brand new with issues with certain rooms not heating and cooling properly and so on. Another thing we're seeing general contractors do is install some of these newer DIY type products in houses, and they're getting away with it because in some states they're allowed to do that. So in my state, they would never be allowed to because an HVAC company has to have that license to do that kind of work. But we are seeing more and more general contractors cut corners and do things with these DIY products and install the ductwork or whatever, not quite up to snuff, not with the same practices, not with the same standard of installation that they would if they would have hired a pro. So that might be a red flag as well. If you are a homeowner that is purchasing a home and you see one of these DIY brands, it might help you to stay away from that, or at least note it as you're purchasing the home that that could be an issue moving forward. So what is the remedy to all this? If you're a homeowner and you're building a house or you're doing some sort of project with a general contractor, I think the main remedy in most situations is hiring your own heating and air company, having those conversations, getting those quotes yourself, and making sure everything is done right. Now, you don't have to purchase our guide, but it's one of the things that, when folks go through our new HVAC guide website, we have a step-by-step process. This should be done, this should be done, and so on. So that way, when you are dealing with that heating and air pro, all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted. But if that is an option, if you've got a contractor building a house for you per se, if they will let you pick out your own heating and air pro, even if you've got to, pay a little more than maybe that general contractor is willing to give you the difference of, but just dealing with the HVAC company directly, because in another situation, you might realize that this is a company or a system that you are marrying for the next several years, right? So if you're installing that system in your brand new home or your brand new addition in your home, then it's going to be years before you probably have it replaced, right? You're not going to build that space, have the contractor do it wrong, and then once he's done with everything and you're able to move into the home or the addition, then have a heating and air pro come behind them and replace everything or get it all up to snuff. So deal directly with the heating and air pro if possible. I know that may not always be possible in all situations, but I do think that that would probably alleviate some of these issues. Have you dealt with any of this? Have you built a home only to find that you had issues? Please comment down below. We'd love to hear about that. Other people catching this video might be curious on some of those situations and some of the things you've dealt with. We'd love you to comment on that. But thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.